Che sceva? Ui, non dorme.
My backpack is right there.
Oh my god! Yeah, this has me really concerned. I hear footprints. Hello?
It's a girl. Is she okay?
Well, I mean, anything could have a cavity, but dude, those are filled cavities.
A solo hiker sets out along the Wild Azalea Trail, tucked inside Louisiana's Catahoula National Forest. Known as one of the most beautiful routes in the state, it's an ideal place for an overnight trip. Blooming azaleas and birdsong make it the perfect escape for clearing the mind. She arrives at the trailhead early, parks in the designated area, and starts getting her equipment together. That's when she spots him for the first time. A lone man carrying nothing but a water bottle. He walks past without acknowledging her and disappears down the trail. She doesn't dwell on it and begins her hike. But before long, the same man shows up again.
Getting out, started on the trail now. It's pretty quiet out here. It's lovely with the birds singing, and every now and then the wind comes through. When I was still getting ready at the trailhead, I encountered 3 young men who are out backpacking on this trail as well, and they let me know that a couple of them had done this trail before.
This time coming up behind her. Still alone. Still without any backpack or supplies. Just the same water bottle. He gives a brief greeting and keeps walking. But the moment leaves her uneasy. By the time she reaches the 3-mile mark, she realizes she's now crossed paths with him 4 separate times. She saw him near her car earlier, then behind her on the trail, then ahead of her again, and finally near a trail junction where he appeared to be digging around in the trunk of his vehicle, possibly retrieving gear this time. The inconsistency of his behavior feels wrong.
You ever just come across somebody and the energy is just off? That is what's been happening to me a little bit today. I'm about 3 miles in and I found this spot that I would really love to camp. But just as I was getting here, I saw somebody that I've seen twice already today. The first time I saw him, he only had a water bottle in his hand, no backpack or anything. And I saw him at the trailhead where I parked my car as I was still pulling things out of my car. And at that point, as soon as he saw me, he sort of turned around and headed back onto the trail. I've seen him 4 times, I just realized. And then I saw him as I was hiking. I had started with my pack up the trail, and he came from behind me, still with just the water bottle. And I didn't hear him at first, but it kind of startled me a little bit. So I moved over to let him go past, and that time was the first time I said, "Oh, hello." And he just said, "Hi." The next time I saw him, he was at a crossroads, and it looked like he was loading things into his car to leave. But I guess he was pulling a backpack out, because even though I didn't say anything to him at that point.
While searching for a place to set up camp, she comes across a clearing near a small bridge. But a more secluded spot just off the trail appears safer. As she approaches, something catches her attention. A trail camera, partially hidden. Oddly, it isn't pointed at a game trail or natural pathway, but directly at the exact place where she set her backpack. The implication is immediate. Someone intentionally positioned the camera to watch that specific campsite. With no other hikers around and the strange man still weighing on her mind, her instincts tell her she shouldn't stay.
But I looked over and I saw this area here, the clearing, and I thought, you know what, that's a bit more hidden from trail. I might feel more comfortable and secure over there, so I came over. Why is there a trail cam pointing to that campsite? I don't really know how those things work. Maybe it's not visible on the camera, but like, what else is it pointing at? Okay. What the heck? Putting my camera right behind My backpack is right there. That's where I was gonna camp. Like, that's an established campsite. Looks like this one is too, but what the heck is going on here? First, weird energy. Second, a trail cam pointed at a campsite. Oh, I think 1 strike, 2 strike. I gotta get out of here before 3 strikes and I'm out.
As she makes her way out, she remembers that the route into the secluded area had been partly blocked with fallen logs, as if someone wanted to prevent others from getting in. And the final detail clicks into place. A group of men wearing matching red shirts that she passed earlier. One of them may have been the same man she saw near her car at the start of the trip. Not willing to take any chances, she gathers her belongings, heads back to the parking lot, and drives away without hesitation.
Is it just me? Or is that weird? Trail cam. Right there. Camp. Right there. I'm standing at my pack and I am looking, and I cannot for the life of me see it over there. I mean, camo, right? Very effective. Moved around, I've come up here. Like, where? I went from campsite 1 over to campsite 2, just kind of an exploratory thing. And the reason it actually took me a little while to decide to go over there is because there were like clear obstructions in the path, logs covering the path. A lot of time that might be set up by Forest Service to say like, this is not a trail, don't go down here. I just felt like I needed to go explore it. There was poison ivy I had to avoid. It's not too dense where I couldn't avoid it. And yeah, I had to go over a couple of logs and stuff like that. But it's almost like they don't want somebody going over there, right? But is it because they don't want somebody to discover the camera? It doesn't feel scary. Like, I'm not scared. I'm actually angry because it feels violating. It feels like a threat in that way where it's...
The repeated encounters, the absence of proper hiking gear, and the unsettling placement of the camera suggest something far beyond coincidence. Was the man following her movements? Did he spot her car at the trailhead and decide to track her? Was this merely an odd chain of events? Or did she narrowly avoid something far more dangerous? What would you have done in her situation? Share your thoughts in the comments. Lisa, the creator behind the Asleep 5 Decades YouTube channel, spends her life traveling alone and living off-grid out of her camper van. Her videos usually highlight the peaceful side of van life. Slow mornings, beautiful drives, and quiet nights in remote places. But one night, everything changed, becoming the kind of scenario every solo traveler fears. Around 4 a.m., she was jolted awake not by animals, but by a loud, deliberate knock right beside where her head rested against the thin wall.
Somebody's back here again. I hear footprints. Hello? How can I help you? It's 4:30 in the morning. I don't feel safe. Who are you?
She froze, realizing someone was standing just inches away. She called out with no response, and then another knock came, stronger, closer, followed by footsteps slowly circling the van.
It's now 4:57, but at 4:37, so like 20 minutes ago, I was in a dead sleep, and I was woken from a knock, like right where my head is, ironically. So I was like frozen. I looked at the time, and it was very strange to me, like who would be knocking on the van at 4:30 in the morning. So by the second knock, I believe it was second, could be the third knock, and they would knock 3 times every time. I just mustered hello and no answer. The person was on a bike, like a pedal bike, like a 10-speed bike, a mountain bike or something, and they were up the drive. And so I just came and lied back down, and trying to register what the hell just happened. Who was that? What did they want? What were their intentions? And all I could think about is they were probably planning on robbing.
When she worked up the courage to look outside, she spotted a car in the distance, headlights on, idling and reversing slowly as if it had been watching the entire time. Later, another pass around the van occurred, and this time she caught sight of a person on foot, hiding behind a tree before heading toward that same vehicle, which backed away again without confrontation. Whoever it was now knew she was alone.
So I just kind of like went back to sleep, or lied back down, went back to bed, I should say. And about 15 minutes later, I hear it again, like a knock on the side of my van again. How can I help you? And they say, I got a question for you. And I said, it's 4:30 in the morning. I don't feel safe. And so I quietly got up and I went to the front and I peeked out and parked way up on the drive. All I could see is like headlights, and then they backed out and went and left. So I'm not feeling so safe. You know, I just don't even know what to make of it. Like, what were they thinking? I do sleep with this beside my bed, and I never thought that I would have to pull it out or grab it, and I did. I hear footprints. Hear that? Yeah, somebody was just here again 3 times now.
And they had knocked exactly where her head was, not on a door or random panel, but precisely where she slept. She stayed awake the rest of the night.
I seen them walking, and they hid behind the tree there, and then they went to a car, the same car that was here earlier. Well, that was back, and then it backed away and left again 3 times in one night. This time, they didn't knock though. They were just walking around. I could hear them walking around the van. But I'm not feeling so safe. Like, I'm just feeling like, I don't know.
At sunrise, she stepped outside to find fresh footprints circling her van, some right at the doors, and 2 water bottles tipped over, possibly to create noise or bait her into coming out. Some viewers suggested it may have begun as an attempted break-in, but the repeated approaches, the circling behavior, and the fact that they continued even after realizing someone was inside suggest something more disturbing. Lisa remained safe, trusting her instincts and refusing to engage, but the sense of being stalked in the dark is not easily forgotten. In a lifestyle defined by freedom and solitude, this was a chilling reminder that the real danger isn't always nature.
As you can see, look at the footprints though. Look at that. That's massive. See that? Like, this worries me. Like, oh my God. Yeah, this has me really concerned. Nothing's here because it's all melted already, but yeah. So, oh, here we go. Here's a couple right here. There and there. Here's, there's my print again. Okay. There. I think they obviously knew that I was in there because of where they knocked. Like, they didn't knock on the passenger door, the driver's door. They knocked like by the real well, so they know, or he knew, that I was living in there. So I feel like I'm being watched, and I just got to be a little bit more careful. But anyways, on that note, guys, I'm going to leave you with some peace, love, and light from my heart to yours.
It's sometimes the people who find you in the middle of nowhere. Whether the motive was theft or something darker remains unknown, raising the question, was this just a failed robbery or something far more sinister? What would you have done in her place? Let us know in the comments. And if you've experienced something similar, share your story. This unsettling video comes from a TikTok creator known as the Patagonian Walker. The date is April 13th, 2022. Alex, an adventure cyclist, is navigating the remote wilderness of Patagonia, filming his journey with a GoPro as he rides along a rugged trail. While following a scenic route, something ahead catches his eye, an object hanging from a tree.
Mira. Es hermoso este caminito para pasear, despejarse un poco. Mirá, esto sería el canal que lleva... Uy, un Doberman. Uy, un Doberman. Uy, un Doberman.
As he slows his bike and approaches, it quickly becomes clear that it's not something naturally formed. Suspended at eye level is a motionless human-shaped figure, completely still and positioned in an unnatural way. The contrast between the quiet landscape and the disturbing object is jarring. Alex comes to a full stop. You can sense his hesitation through his breathing and the way the camera shifts. It's the kind of discovery that sets off every instinct, even though nothing around him is moving. The figure doesn't appear freshly placed, yet there's no obvious explanation for why it's there at all. Alone in a remote region with no one else in sight, the find feels intentional and unsettlingly targeted. After the video went public, it generated a flood of theories online. Some commenters suggested it might be an old practice dummy or a mannequin left behind by hikers or cyclists as a prank. Others believe it could be a deterrent, something hung there deliberately to scare people away from a certain part of the trail. But then come the darker interpretations. Was it meant as a threat? Had someone placed it there to send a message? And even worse, was the person responsible still nearby, watching? In such an isolated area where cell service is rare and help is hours away, even a subtle threat can feel overwhelming. Whatever the actual purpose, the image is hard to forget. Was it a harmless joke? A misguided trail marker? Or an intentional warning meant for anyone who passed by? For those who travel through remote landscapes, it's a reminder that even the most breathtaking places can hold deeply unnerving surprises. What do you think Alex stumbled upon that day? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy true stories from the far edges of the map, make sure to like and subscribe. There are more real outdoor encounters on the way. YouTuber Luke Rock and his team returned to one of the most unsettling places they had ever filmed. A deserted hospital with a deeply troubled past. Once a tuberculosis ward, later a psychiatric institution, and eventually a rehabilitation center, the structure carries layers of emotional trauma and lingering paranormal stories. From the moment they arrive, Luke is fully aware of the dangers, both mentally and physically, of entering the facility after dark.
Dude, I don't even want to look into the rooms. Look at the lights on in this hallway. Like, that's freaking crazy. Dude, whoa. When I was in high school, I used to come down here. What is up, guys? We are in this crazy hospital again. Guys, it is so freaking scary here at nighttime. I don't even know how to explain it. It's crazy. For one, like, there's like a really good chance that there's somebody else in here with us, because the last time I was here, we found the tent here. You just heard something? And it looked like somebody was sleeping here. So, and the very first time that I was here, I actually heard somebody in here drilling. I'm bumping into stuff. Guys, the very first time I was in here, I actually heard somebody like drilling and probably ripping stuff apart. But the craziest part was actually seeing the tent, like somebody's camping out in here. Yo, is that a moaning sound? Was that a car? Guys, we're keeping the lights down for now. We don't want to be too obvious here. Dude, this is the creepiest hallway. This is like going through Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, no joke. We just came from that way. I'm literally shaking in my boots. I'm scared a little bit. This is crazy. I've done some stupid stuff. This has got to be right up there with some of the stupidest. Guys, this was an old hospital. The electricity's still on. It's like so creepy.
I want to see that room with the one.
Oh, from my other video?
Their investigation starts around 3 a.m. as they make their way inside the deteriorating hallways. Luke remarks on how overwhelmingly oppressive the building feels at night, especially since on past trips, he found evidence suggesting someone might have been staying there, including a tent set up indoors. Even more troubling, he recalls hearing the sound of power tools echoing through the corridors during an earlier visit. As they push further through the hospital, their flashlights barely cut through the heavy darkness, and the tension rises steadily. Despite the building being abandoned for years, certain electrical components inexplicably still work. Lights flicker, phones produce dial tones, and various devices react in ways that shouldn't be possible. Throughout the exploration, Luke runs multiple spirit box sessions. The results are unnerving. Clear EVPs respond directly to their questions. At one point, he becomes convinced someone is standing just outside the room, and moments later, the camera suddenly refuses to focus.
Gordon! Guys, my camera was just freaking off. We're getting crazy EVPs in here. It just said 3, right? Just like clear. Who's here with us? What is your name?
To investigate.
What was this hospital used for? Can you tell us what they did in this hospital?
We get.
Oh, dude, there's somebody out there. Yo, I definitely heard somebody out there. You want to keep going? Yeah. I'm freaked out. I swear. Go ahead, open the door. Huh? What? Open the door. Don't tell me we're locked in here. Oh my god. What idiots, dude. That was really not smart of us. Guys, we almost locked ourselves into this place. Did you say hospital beds?
Yeah, across the nuts.
My camera will not focus. Dude, I wonder what it was that I...
He also checks a door that had always been locked on previous visits, only to find it wide open this time. Inside a decaying bathroom, they stumble across something that pushes the night into a far darker direction. What look like human teeth sitting inside an old sink. Several even have cavities and metal fillings, strongly suggesting they once belonged to real individuals. From that moment forward, strange activity intensifies.
Guys, oh, I can't see nothing. Why can't I see nothing? There's the blue light. Guys, those look like human freaking teeth. Those are human teeth, dude.
Yeah, I mean...
Turn the light on. Hold on. Yeah, they got freaking cavities in them. Well, I mean, anything could have a cavity, but dude, those are filled cavities.
They look old.
Whose teeth are these?
I don't know. That's weird.
Are you kidding me? That is nasty. Just sitting in the sink.
Batteries drain unusually fast, walkie-talkies switch on without anyone touching them, and soft whispers and unexplained footsteps follow them across the upper levels. Even as they attempt to exit the hospital, the disturbances continue. Luke hears one final loud sound echoing down a hallway, confirming their suspicion. They are not alone in the building. viewers have theorized that the location may be housing squatters, or something far more difficult to explain. The discovery of actual teeth, active electronics, and unmistakable EVPs all hint at a strong presence still lingering inside. Some people believe the energy is residual, tied to the facility's history of suffering, while others think the activity points to intelligent entities. Was someone hiding inside, keeping out of sight? Or does the hospital still resonate with the energy and voices of the people who once occupied it? Share your thoughts below. Would you dare to walk through those hallways after dark? In March 2023, YouTubers Nikolai and Brian captured one of the most frightening experiences of their van life travels while driving through Oklahoma. The pair usually posts calm, scenic travel vlogs, but this particular video took a shocking turn when they suddenly found themselves directly in the path of a severe storm. Their day started normally as they parked their van beside a peaceful lakeside, expecting a relaxing afternoon. But when they checked their phones, they realized the situation had changed. Severe weather alerts were rolling in. The region had been placed under a tornado watch, and high wind warnings were intensifying fast. Locals didn't seem bothered. Some continued walking around the parking area without concern. Nikolai and Brian, however, were unfamiliar with areas prone to tornadoes and began to feel genuinely uneasy.
But there's a loud tornado thing going. I don't know what we're supposed to do. Alright, why don't you just come down with me?
Here comes the hail. Two eyes. There's a person running. I feel terrible. It's a girl. Is she okay? Y'all, there is a man who went into the convenience store and literally I thought he was going in for shelter. Look at that man. He's a freaking... It is not pleasant out there. We're not used to this, y'all, so this is a little scary.
We're just gonna wait it out. We're gonna be okay.
The worst of the storm is coming through, so it's just a little scary to see it coming and then it arriving. I don't know how y'all deal with this all the time. I really do not. The winds are crazy. I've never experienced winds like this.
We don't want them to just stop and pick up again. That means you're in like an eye of a storm.
With no safe building nearby, they chose to stay inside the van and prepare for the worst. Dark clouds thickened overhead, and the wind grew stronger by the minute. Before long, emergency sirens started blaring across the area. Nikolai spotted a young woman sprinting for shelter, while another person casually walked into a store as though nothing unusual was happening. Because cell service was spotty, the couple relied on updates from Brian's father, who was watching live news coverage and relaying information to them remotely. Then the storm arrived. They were in Norman, Oklahoma when the most intense part of the system hit. Winds reportedly exceeded 70 mph. Their van rocked violently as power lines snapped. Debris whipped through the air, and sections of rooftops were torn off nearby buildings. The chaos looked like something out of a blockbuster disaster movie. Once the storm moved on, local reports detailed the destruction. Neighborhoods around Norman and nearby communities suffered extensive damage. Homes lost entire second stories, windows were blown out, and several houses were left almost completely stripped. Remarkably, Nikolai and Brian, along with their van, escaped without injury. Even so, the emotional impact of how narrowly they avoided disaster stayed with them. When the weather finally cleared, they returned carefully to their campsite near Lake Thunderbird. Although the van had protected them during the worst of it, the lingering fear of what might have happened was hard to shake off. Hoping to decompress, they later stopped at a quirky Route 66 soda shop, where they laughed about unusual drink flavors and enjoyed a small moment of relief. The experience was a stark reminder of how unpredictable nature can be, especially for travelers unfamiliar with tornado territory. Some viewers suggested they consider investing in better weather alert systems or satellite-based notifications for use in areas with poor reception. If the tornado had shifted its track even slightly, their van might not have survived the impact. It's a chilling thought. how quickly a normal day can become life-threatening. What would you have done in their situation? Would you remain in the van or attempt to run for shelter? This next account takes us back into one of the most unnerving places documented on the YouTube channel Cursed Urban, run by Dan. In this investigation, shot deep inside the area his viewers now refer to as Skinwalker Forest.
The last time I was at this part of the forest, something threw a stick at me from the darkness. I will link that video down in the description of when that happened, but it was crazy. I was walking down
Dan returns to a spot where he previously experienced a disturbing moment. Something unseen once hurled a stick at him from the dark. The incident stayed with him, and after months away, he's come back to see whether the forest still carries that same threatening atmosphere. Right away, something feels different. A trail that used to be rough, tangled, and difficult to walk through now appears strangely groomed. The ground looks mulched, the pathway oddly cleared. Dan immediately picks up on the change and points out that it never looked like this before. As he heads deeper into the woods under the nighttime canopy, the tension increases.
to the right. That's her gunshots. Dude, that's gunshots over there. That's gunshots for sure right over there.
The stillness is suddenly broken by the sound of several loud gunshots echoing somewhere inside the forest, followed moments later by a distant scream. Dan attempts to pinpoint where the sounds came from but finds nothing, only blackness and the unsettling feeling that something is nearby. Throughout the night, Dan relies on his paranormal equipment, including Spirit Talker, which begins producing disquieting words: blood out, shadowy realms, doppelganger. Then comes the most jarring message: you can't stay. Whether it was a caution or a threat, Dan is unsure. His exploration eventually leads him onto the private property owned by his friend Todd, whose land borders the forest. Todd has always allowed Dan to investigate and camp there, and Dan notes that this area has had unexplained occurrences before, though tonight, the activity feels inconsistent. Switching to a different app, the responses become drastically less meaningful. Random statements such as, "Let's play a game," appear, but nothing follows. The sudden drop in interaction makes Dan wonder if the forest is deliberately playing games with him. Was it familiar with him during his earlier visits, only to now treat him like an outsider after his long absence? Eventually, the energy shifts. The messages slow down, then stop altogether. Dan considers two possibilities. Either whatever was communicating simply lost interest, or something might be silently observing instead of speaking. Late into the investigation, the most unsettling message yet comes through. Cryptic mentions of rituals and something called a shuffle game, a term new to Dan. Spirit Talker repeatedly warns him not to perform any rituals, which feels strangely connected to the earlier scream and gunfire, casting an even darker tone over the night. As fatigue creeps in, Dan returns to his tent to rest before continuing his exploration at dawn. But when he wakes, everything has gone completely quiet. Spirit Talker, the necrometer, and the spirit box remain inactive. No responses, no whispering, only stillness. Dan's experience highlights how unpredictable this forest can be. The initial intensity, gunshots, warnings, cryptic messages, eventually dissolves into silence. Was the forest testing him? Did his absence shift the way the entities reacted? And what about those repeated warnings about rituals? Were they tied to local legends, or to something still operating in the depths of the woods? What do you think caused the sudden silence? Was it acceptance, a final warning, or something far more sinister? Have you ever been in a place that felt aware of your presence? Share your theories in the comments below. That's it for tonight. Which moment creeped you out the most? Drop it in the comments. Have your own story? Share it with us, and stay tuned. The next one is even darker.